All right, there we go. Hi, Professor Lewis. I'm here to record my persuasive speech for you. I have listening my grandparents and my mother. Say hi, guys.
Hi.
And so they're my audience for today. So let me just set up my timer here and I'll get started. So, okay. Start reset. There's a lot of violence in school today. There's kids who are getting beaten up for no reason. There's violence in school shootings. There's military who are responding in ways that they shouldn't in circumstances because they've been trained to do so, because they've lost empathy, because aggressive behavior is becoming okay. My name is Zachary and I'm here to discuss with you the angle of violence in media, but particularly of violent video games and the effects they have on children and on aggressive behavior. In this speech, I will cover 3 specific points. The first will be in identifying the problem, the second will be in analyzing the opposition, and the third will be in establishing a solution to create opportunities for decision making. So, let me dive right in and waste no time. The obvious question is, can we prove that violence in video games is affecting our children and affecting our generation in a negative way? Well, in a study from Psychological Bulletin evaluating over 130,000 participants, found that violent video games increase aggressive thoughts, angry feelings, physiological arousal, and aggressive behavior. Violent games also decrease helping behavior and feelings of empathy for others. And that's just one study, and there's plenty more. In another one done by Lawrence Kuttner in 2008, they compared aggressive behavior in 2 groups, those that played mature-rated games and those that didn't. This is with children. They found that of those who were involved in delinquent behavior and fights and bullying and victimization, 30 to 80% more of the involvement came from kids who were playing these type of games in their homes. In a third study done by Craig Anderson, a longtime advocate for this topic, he revealed the shocking fact that violent video game effect sizes are larger than the effect of secondhand tobacco smoke on lung cancer, the effect of lead exposure to IQ scores in children, and calcium intake on bone mass. What does that mean? It means that in our society today, we're overlooking the effect that this violent video game, that this society is allowing into our minds, into the minds of young people, and how it's warranting them a lot more socially acceptable ways to be aggressive. So, now let's take a minute and examine why, if these statistics that I've just said are true, there hasn't been more done. Well, I've come to 3 conclusions in regard to the opposition as to why this hasn't been addressed more strongly. The first is that of the size of the industry. The ESRB, Entertainment Standards Rating Board, said that they grossed nearly $11.5 billion in revenue in 2009 and about $24 billion in 2012, always increasing. Of that number, 20% comes from mature-rated games sold to people who are maybe of age, maybe not. Fighting an industry of that size is a difficult process. Another is that there's been a lot of ground saying that there's no direct link between violent video games and violence in real life. Well, directly no, but does increasingly aggressive behavior lead to this? Definitely. In a joint statement in Congress, it was said that children who see a lot of violence are more likely to view it as an effective way of settling conflicts, as an acceptable behavior. A study about the causal relationship of violence in video games said direct exposure to violent video games did not hold any predictive power regarding the commission of violent crimes. The result did suggest the interaction between aggressive personality and violent video game exposure is predictive of violent crimes. So let's put that in plain terms. Does violent video games directly link to criminal activity and to violence? No. But does violent video games increase aggressive behavior? Yes. And does that lead to violent activity? Without a doubt. Those are 2 reasons why: the size of the industry and the cause for no direct linkage. The third is that many are believing that violent video games have their place in effective parts of society. One of those is the military. For decades, the military has been using video game technology, said Professor Nina Huntman of Suffolk University. She says every branch of the U.S. Armed Forces and many police departments are using retooled video games to train their personnel. So now we have 2 sides of this coin. We have the side that feeds the industry, that claims there's no direct linkage, so it can't be a big issue, and that supports violent video games. And we have the side that shows consequential evidence of the effects it can have on children and on increasing aggressive behavior. Speaking as a young adult who's played games for nearly 10 years, including those of more violent characteristics, there are always risks in our society that seem worth taking. But ignoring aggressive behavior in our society that is out of control already is not one of those. So, what should we do? Well, the Harvard Health Review has given a few examples of what to do in families to help kids stray away from these kind of violent games. And I'll list a few of my own ideas. They say things like check the ratings of the games, to play games with the kids, to put the gaming systems in central parts of the home where the parents can monitor it. While you're a kid and you probably don't want to be monitored doing everything you do, something like this is something that I wouldn't play around with. For my personal opinion, young people, how far does the line of violence need to go before we start looking at it with integrity, before we start making decisions for the betterment of our future and those around us? How far does violence need to get before we decide that this is enough? I'm running out of time and I have to close quickly, but I want to call you into a story of a Burundian man and his experience coming from civil war in his home country and growing up with it and seeing Americans play violent video games for fun. He concludes, I think back to the season of war and remember how we fled deep into the jungle, far from any people. That was how we managed to survive, by hiding, by turning our back to the rest of humanity. He says most of all, they, referring to his home people, would have envied the fact that these lucky children, American gamers, did not know the true devastation of war, that they only played at violence. How long in our society will it take? How long will we allow our children to just play at violence? Aggression, Thompson from her school behaviors book says, aggression is a learned behavior, but the benefit is it can be unlearned. And the best day to start that is today, with you and with I. So let's find a way, let's make a change to our direction. Young people, if you're listening and if you care, let's not let our society become any more aggressive, become any more violent. Let's stop the line and say these games are just too close. And let's move our society in another direction. Thank you. Okay, Professor Lewis, that was 6 minutes and 56 seconds. And I'm just going to stop the video now. Thank you. Thank you.